Everybody, welcome. It's 8 here in Japan, so I'd like to say good evening, but for some of you, it's around lunchtime or still early morning. Um, anyway, thank you for coming to the very first time. Thank you also, Xuan for hosting this Zoom meeting. It was Xuan's idea to do this. And yeah, the plan is to do it every Monday around this time. I think all over the world it's Monday right now. Even I don't know about Hawaii, but uh, even in America, I think it's Monday already. And 50 minutes until 8:50. Um, My idea, my plan is to sit as long as possible, but not only sitting, especially during the first couple of times. I want to explain a little bit about the practice of sitting, of how to sit, and then maybe later, if you're interested, I could talk also a little bit about the teaching of Zen, about koans, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, or about the teaching of Dogen, who imported Soto-style Zen from China to Japan. But I would like to reserve at least half of the time we have, at least half of this 50 minutes for actually just sitting. And I want to keep the theory to as short as possible. Xuan-san, do you want to translate in Chinese, or how do we do this?
I
I
think,
think I think on your homepage you say you're gonna translate.
yeah. Some of my member, my yoga, the people who join my yoga class, they're
Yes,
Chinese. They don't really
yes,
speak English, especially my parents. So I would like to translate to my
yes.
family, also my friends.
Okay.
今天是第一次我们参加这个课，然后老师想让我们多花一些时间，就是打坐坐禅。前面会有一些怎样打坐的讲解，也会有一些关于呃就是关于禅的历史，然后那个禅怎么传到日本，还有 Dogen 这个老师他的一些理论的知识也会讲。然后因为今天也是第一次，我们也要看看上课情况，以后再做调整啊。OK，
Thank you. So maybe we start right away, or I start right away with explaining about the actual practice of sitting. Well, in Japan, in Japanese, we say zazen. Another way of saying it here is shkantaza, which is usually translated as just sitting, just sitting. And sometimes it's said that zazen and meditation are not the same. And when people ask what's the difference would be that when you meditate, you sit and you do something. You concentrate on something, you try to be mindful. Maybe you count your breath. And in Zazen, the point is to sit and make no addition. There's no plus alpha. You just sit with your whole heart and soul. But
OK
that's it.
OK，嗯嗯。好，有些人会提问，就是坐禅和冥想有什么区别？其实特别大的一个区别就是冥想的时候，你心里会想着一个，就是你会集中精神在某个事情上面，但是打坐的时候呢，日语叫扎赞，就是只是坐下来，没有你的精神没有集中在某一个点上，只是坐在那儿，大概其就是这个区别，
About the actual sitting posture, um, if you've practiced yoga or if you've practiced Zen already, you might be able to sit in either half or full lotus posture. If you're not able to sit in either half or full lotus posture, it's not a problem. You can also sit, for example, in this. Sometimes in English it's called Burmese posture, where your feet rest on the floor. But even if you sit in this posture, it's best if you can have both knees rest on the floor. And for that, if you have this cushion, it helps. Without the cushion, it often happens that the knees are up in the air. But if you use this cushion and put it under your buttocks, it helps to get the knees firm on the floor, and that gives you more stability.
OK，就是我们练瑜伽的朋友应该知道，我们最后那个 Padmasana 做的时候，可以是2个腿都盘腿。如果你盘不上去的话，盘一边也没问题，或者是2边都不盘，直接把腿放在地上也可以。最好是能在下面垫一个东西，为什么呢？是为了让你的2个膝盖可以着地，这样的话腿不容易麻。最好是能像老师那样后边就是臀部后边垫一个东西，然后让你2个膝盖着地，坐着舒服一点啊。
Of course, if you can sit in either half lotus or in full lotus, that gives you even more stability. So if you can do that, if you're used to this kind of posture, that's even better. But you don't have to force, so don't, hurt yourself. If you're not used to this, maybe you rather start with having the feet on the floor.
最好如果你可以盘腿的话，当然这个是最佳的一个选择，2个腿都盘起来，因为这个姿势比较稳定。如果盘不了的话，就不要强求，一个腿盘也可以，或者是2个腿都在地上也可以。
Maybe in general, if you have practiced Ashtanga style yoga for a while and you do the Padmasana at the end, you will notice that there are some small differences between Ashtanga style Padmasana and this Zen sitting posture. One small difference is the hands. Like in yoga, you would have the hands like this. In Zen, you put the hands like that. But what might be a bigger difference in Ashtanga yoga, well, Xuan would be kind of an expert. She can explain maybe better, but you would close the bandha and tuck the intestines upwards. So you pull in the belly and you breathe with the breast. And also maybe you close the bandha here. So compared to Zen, a lot of the, the body and the center of the body moves a little bit upwards. While in Zen, it's almost the opposite. You breathe with the diaphragm. You don't use so much the breast, but the diaphragm. And sometimes it's said you try to let the intestines drop. You let everything drop, so you don't close the bandha, but rather you release everything. And the center of gravity, the center of the body, you rather lower it.
就是阿什汤嘎的练习和我们Zazen这个最后这个 Padmasana 盘腿的有一个特别大的不一样，就是一个是手不大一样。我们在 Padmasana 的时候，2个手是Vishnu Mudra， 然后放在膝盖上，胳膊肘伸直哈。还有一个特别大的区别就是 Zazen 的时候手是这样，我们之前讲左手在上，右手在下，放在2个腿中间。对，然后呢，还有一个特别大的区别就是呼吸不大一样，因为在阿什汤嘎练习的时候，我们要穆拉班达收紧往上提，小腹收住，所以你的小腹是收紧的，是胸腔在呼吸。然后在坐禅的时候呢，没有，坐禅的时候呢可以放松，你的肚子不用完全收回来，是完全放松的，是腹式呼吸。还有一点就是我们在 Padmasana 的时候呢，这儿有一个。这个班的要收紧，对吧？我们要低头，这儿要锁住。但是在Zazen的时候呢，这个地方不用，放松就可以。这是2个，一个呼吸不一样，还有一个姿势不大一样啊，就这2点。OK。
Another difference is probably what you do with the lower back. In Zen, and that's one of the reasons why we use this cushion. The cushion helps to bend the, how do you say, zakotsu in English, the pelvis bone a little bit forward. And by bending the pelvis bone forward, there's more weight on the knees. So when you sit, your body is not only supported by the buttocks, but by the buttocks and also the knees. I have the feeling, I'm still trying to figure out, but when you do yoga, rather than kind of go like this in yoga, sometimes it says to put the tailbone downwards. So in yoga, maybe you would rather try to go like this, while in Zen, you rather go like this. You should overdo it, so you don't have to sit like this. But the pelvis is bent a little bit forward, and that gives you more stability. You sit a little bit almost like a pyramid.
OK，还有一个特别大的不同就是我们在瑜伽最后那个 Padmasana 练习的时候，因为我们要穆拉班达收紧，所以你的尾椎骨是下沉的，就尾椎骨没有翘起来，尾椎骨要下沉，要往下朝下。但是在扎赞的时候，我们在坐禅的时候呢，因为你就是下面要垫一个东西吧。就是要把身体稍微垫高一点，所以你的胯尾椎骨稍微往后倾一点，和我们最后瑜伽那个练习有一点点不一样，但是也不能太靠前，它就稍微有一点点尾椎骨朝后，因为你下边垫高了，还有一个是这个不一样，
About the hands, traditionally you put the right hand down first, and if you have your feet in lotus posture, you can, for example, put them here on the heel of the right foot, and the left hand would be placed on the right hand. If you sit like this, you can either balance the hands here, or if you want some support, you can use a towel or something. Like here, that's the stuff that I just wore. If you put it like this, it gives some support to the hands. So you don't want your shoulders to become stiff. So you want to relax your shoulders. And it might help if you have some support for the hands like this to relax the shoulder while you sit.
然后在坐的时候，手的位置呢，我们之前那个上课时候也说过了哈，是右手在下，左手在上。如果你两个脚都盘起来的话呢，位置会高一点，你这手会舒服一点，刚好放在你两腿之间。如果你盘不了腿的话，脚在地上的时候，手会离脚有一个位置，就是有一个距离。你觉得不舒服的时候呢，可以手下面垫个东西，垫个毛巾啊，或者垫个什么东西，稍微垫高一点。重点是不要让你的肩膀一直端着，因为我们坐禅时间比较长，肩膀不要太僵硬，肩膀放松，上身放松，手是最好能够搭在腿上啊。基本上这个意思。
So you hold your hands like this. Actually, that can be quite difficult. It's not difficult to place the hands like this, but it can be difficult to keep them like this for 20, 30 minutes. Often it happens when you fight too much, there's too much strength in the posture or in the sitting. Your thumbs go up like this. You start to sit like this if you kind of in big pain, and then you fight against the pain. While if you become sleepy, you dream, then often it happens that the thumbs go down like this, or they separate from each other. So although it sounds very easy to sit with the hands like this, often you will notice that your thumbs separate or they form a mountain. And when you notice that happens, you might want to bring them back to the original posture, which would be something like this.
其实把手放在这个姿势不难，但是因为我们坐禅时间比较长，你要一直保持这个姿势就会比较难。比如说你就是为了不动或者心理活动特别多的时候呢，你可能2个手指就会这样翘起来，或者是你比如说特别累有点犯困的时候，你手可能就下来了。但是当你这个手的位置有变化的时候呢，不管是向上还是向下的时候呢，你就把它放回来，放回到原来的位置上啊。
And after you bend your pelvis forward a little bit, your back should, well, stretch in a natural way. So rather than you stretching the back, it's best if, in a very natural way, almost like, for example, a plant that is growing naturally towards the sun, you allow your spine to stretch in the same way, and the back of your neck. So your chin will move a little bit backwards when your spine stretches. Your ears should be right above the shoulders. The shoulders are, well, just like in yoga, they're a little bit backwards, rather than when you work at the desk all day, you tend to develop a posture like this. And maybe in the beginning, you should consciously concentrate on getting the shoulders back and allow the spine that's bent all day, allow it to stretch in a natural way.
就是你的坐姿要自然，不要太用力。当然后背要挺直，下巴就是像我们坐的时候，肯定是你的下巴要稍微收回来一点，然后耳朵呢和耳朵在肩膀的上面，就是你的下巴颏不要往前顶，要收回来，是脑瓜顶是往上提，但是后背不要太使劲儿，就好像一个植物在地上。一个植物生长一样，它在地上是自然而然的站起来的，不要太用力，然后但是呢，也不要像我们平时在电脑前面一直工作的时候，身体往前趴，这个姿势也不对，要自然挺拔，
The next thing would be the eyes. Sometimes it's said that you should, how do you say, point the eyes 45 degrees downwards. You don't have to be attached to this 45 degrees. You can also be a little bit. Well, right now I'm watching the camera, but during Zazen, I'm gonna watch somewhere this area. So I'm gonna keep the eyes maybe 30 degrees down. And in many meditation styles, you close the eyes. Sometimes it's easier for people to relax, concentrate if they close the eyes. That is okay. But also there's the tendency that you start to dream when you close the eyes, or you become sleepy. So in general, it's better if you keep the eyes at least half open, so that you stay here in this space. You're aware of the space where you sit, but you can close them a little, so that will help your other senses, like the ears or the nose, and the whole body. The other senses that during the rest of the day you don't use so much. Usually when we work, for example, at the computer, we use mostly our eyes, and maybe we use the ears a little, but we don't use the rest of the body. So during Zazen, to help the rest of your body to be more aware, you close the eyes just a little, but not completely.
还有一点就是眼睛的位置。你看老师现在的时候，他是往前平视的，他看镜头，但是在Zazen的时候，就是我们在坐禅的时候，眼皮稍微向斜下角看，但是也不要太靠下。不是，它是往斜下看，但是也不是说你要完全看得特别特别低，可以稍微高一点点。还有一种那个坐禅的方法，就是我们在冥想的时候，有一种是闭眼睛的，但是在Zazen的时候呢，眼睛最好不要完全的闭上，因为完全闭上之后呢，容易胡思乱想，也容易犯困。当然，你的眼睛稍微就是半睁的状态下呢，会帮助你其他的五感，精神集中，比如你的就是听力啊，还有其他的一些感觉。最好是眼睛不要闭上，保持一个半睁的状态。
Another question now is, what do you do with your eyes? You have them half open, you look down, but do you focus on one spot or you try to see the whole panorama? And actually you can do both. You can do both and see how it differs. If you focus on only one point and keep your focus there during Zazen, it will help your mind also to become more focused. But it can also happen that you're more tense. You become more tense. While if you keep your awareness on the whole panorama without focusing on one point, it helps your mind to be more open and more accepting, but it can lead to more drowsiness. It's easier to become drowsy and to fall asleep if you focus on the whole panorama. But what I usually do is I open my vision and try to be aware of the whole panorama. But if that makes you feel dizzy or drowsy, you can also focus on one point. Either way is okay, whatever is best for you.
然后现在还有一个问题就是，当你眼睛半睁的状态时，你是集中精力在一点上，还是好像你看到了，就是要把你的视野打开，看到全部？当然，其实两种都可以，有好有坏。比如你在集中一点的时候呢，精神容易集中，但是同样的也容易紧张，容易精神太过紧张。如果看到其他，就是你的视野打开的时候呢，有些时候容易犯困，然后呢，精神不容易集中，或者是有些时候精神涣散，所以哪一种都可以。老师他其实是就是幕后老师，他主要是他的方法是基本上看到所有的位置。如果当你所有的就是你的精神好像看到视野打开的时候呢，你觉得不舒服或者有一些头晕的时候，你也可以完全再聚焦在一个点上，也可以，就是两种都可以。
You can also do a similar experiment with the thumbs. If you feel drowsy or sleepy, it sometimes helps if you put the thumbs, what is called in Japanese tanden, a spot which is a little bit below the navel. If you attach the thumbs actually to the body and keep them here, it helps you to be more awake and focused. But if you, on the other side, you feel too tense and you want to relax, rather than keep your thumbs here, it's easier to relax when you have them down here. So either way is fine, and you will probably notice the difference. If you have them here, there's less strength in the posture, it's easier to relax, but maybe sometimes you get a little bit sleepy. And if that happens, you can have the thumbs here, actually touching the tongue. If you want to experiment or feel the difference, you can also try that during Zazen, how it feels if you sit like this and how it feels when you sit like this. Of course, during the sitting, you shouldn't move around too much, but you can try one Monday sitting like this, and next week you try it like this and you feel the difference.
还有一个手的位置，就有一些人也提过这个问题，你的手是要贴住丹田的位置，还是说手放松就放松在腿上？其实两个都可以。手贴住丹田的位置呢，容易精神集中，然后同时也容易紧张。就是你可能坐姿太过僵硬啊。如果你手放松的状态，可能就会走神儿，容易精神涣散，容易犯困。你当然可以在坐禅的时候调整。原则是坐禅可以不动，你不能手一直在这儿来回动。但是如果你想要调整的话，是可以调整的。而且你在坐禅的时候可以自己找找感觉，你觉得哪个你比较舒服，这是可以调整的啊。
And the next topic would be what to do with the breath and with what happens in your mind. But we've already used half of the time today talking about the posture. So if you have questions about the physical posture, I would like to invite you to ask them now, or if maybe you're already experienced practitioners and there's something that I forgot, something that you want to add, I would like to invite you to ask or to make comments now, and maybe we can talk about breathing and what you do with the mind next week. The short answer is you don't do anything with the breathing and with the mind. You just allow it to be natural. And what happens with the mind, you're aware of what happens in the mind, but you don't do anything with it. You don't try to suppress the thoughts, and you try to avoid chasing the thoughts. And whenever you realize that you chase the thoughts, you return to the posture, return to the situation here and now. And if you want, you can also concentrate on the breath. That will make it easier for you to stay in this moment rather than drift away with the thoughts. But if you have questions before we sit, please don't hesitate to ask. Or if you have to make any additions to what I just said, please remind me of what I forgot.
Morning, Muho. Could I please ask you to talk a bit about when preparing to sit in Zazen, shifting the body from the left to the right?
Good that you reminded me of that. So before we start to sit, when you adjust the posture, so you've basically done all of the adjustments. How do you do it with the hands? Usually in Soto-Shu, you also have the hands here when you do this movement from the left to the right. In Japanese, we say sayu yoshin. Sa-yu means left and right, and yoshin means to swing. Both yo and shin mean something like swinging. And I like this actually, so I do it in a maybe quite exaggerated way. I know many other practitioners that don't swing so much, but I like to swing quite big at the beginning. And when you don't only swing from left to right, but in the beginning you also have your upper body forwards. And while you swing, these movements get smaller and smaller. But I usually use a minute or two to do this. You don't have to, but I like this because it helps you to, or it helps the body to find its center by itself. When we try to find our center or to sit straight using our brain, so I have to sit straight, it usually doesn't work so well because our brain doesn't really know the right posture, and we're also conditioned in funny ways. But if you allow your body to swing by itself, your posture will probably not be perfect at the end of this swinging process, but it helps the body to find its center. And at least for me, it feels a little bit like a ship that's kind of moved by the waves of the ocean, but you let the anchor down into the ocean. And if the ship is anchored, it might still be moved by the waves a little bit, but not so much. So it's like letting the anchor down. And then at the end of the sitting, I will strike this bell at the beginning and at the end. And after I strike the bell at the end, usually you place your palms together, what's called gassho in Japanese, and then you do it again. And in this case, a little bit like in yoga, now you place the hands on the knees. Why you do this, I'm not quite sure. Maybe also to let this energy that you accumulated, you release that energy. And first you move, you do small movements, and then they gradually become bigger. Here again, there are some practitioners that stop here, but I usually like to go really deep down like this. You don't have to do that, but I usually like to go down like this. Also helps to get the feeling back into the feet. So that's the movement, the swinging movement before and after Zazen, called Sayuyoshin.
今天我们主要讲的就是外在的一个身体上的一个姿势，然后坐姿呀，然后包括手的位置啊、头的位置啊，然后其实还有一个呼吸，还有你就是心里边头脑总是走神儿这个问题，我们今天没有说，可能因为时间的问题，下个星期会讲这个问题。然后基本上就是说，你不用管它，呼吸和就是基本原则是呼吸和你在走神儿的时候就不用管它，如果走神儿的时候可以是收回来。比如呼吸的话，可以是关注呼吸，但是也没有特殊的要求。像刚才那个人他提了一个问题，就是身体在左右晃的时候怎么办？其实就是在日本我们坐禅之前就好像我们之前的准备活动，就像刚才老师做那个动作，就是你可以夹，它是一个有点像基本活动那个姿势，你是。基本上是在坐禅之前和坐禅结束之后的一个动作，就刚才老师刚才你左右晃的那个动作。
That was Paul, I think. Eko also, I think, raised his hand.
Oh yeah, it's Aiko. Then I wanted to ask about the center of gravity, but I think the swinging will help.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? You can also ask by chat if you want to, but you can also ask directly if you want. If you don't have any other questions, I think it's a good time to start with the practice. I think a good amount of you are already experienced, and those of you who sit for the first time, don't be bothered by the thoughts in your mind. Maybe you have heard that during meditation, you're supposed to have an empty mind, and you will realize it's not going to be empty. Don't be worried about that. There will be a lot of thoughts coming into your mind, maybe even more than during the rest of the day. You will be surprised how many things will be popping up, but don't be worried about that. And if you don't know how you can come back into the here and now, into this present moment, just concentrate on your breath, on this breath that you breathe out and then you breathe in again. And even that is not so easy. Try it for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and you'll realize it's quite difficult to do it continuously, but you can always come back. Whenever you realize I've been thinking about yesterday, about tomorrow, about what that person told me today, and what I'm going to tell him when I meet him again tomorrow. Whenever you realize you've been thinking, you can return to the breath. Or if you want, for example, to the world of sounds, whatever you're hearing at the moment, or the whole physical perception.
就是一会儿我们开始做的时候呢，不用担心自己老走神儿啊，就是如果思维不集中，直接回来就好，然后关注你的呼吸，可能你会感觉到，就是你在做的时候，可能比你一天要思绪，比你一天这个思绪都要丰富，不用担心，就是关注在你的呼吸上边儿，基本上老师是这个意思。还有就是你比如听到什么声音，也不用特别担心，关注呼吸，坚持2、3分钟，慢慢就好了，
As I've been doing quite a lot of explanation today, I would suggest that we sit only 15 minutes. And then after that, if you have questions, you can also ask questions again. And hopefully next week we can start to sit longer each time. So I hope that eventually we can sit at least half an hour or so together, and that I will do less talking each time. Before we start to sit, I will strike this bell 3 times and then at the end 1 time. and then we can talk again.
今天我们做15分钟，然后以后会慢慢一点点加长，最好是我们能在一起坚持半个小时。老师就是在这个坐禅之前讲话会越来越少，然后在开始之前呢，老师会就是那个钵3次，他会敲3次钵，然后就不能动了。结束的时候呢，敲1次啊。
Thank you very much. Our time is already almost up, but if you have questions, and maybe it's not a problem if we stay here for 5 minutes longer or so. So if you have still time and questions or anything to say, you're welcome. Or if it was your first time, how did it feel? Was the first time for you to sit? How was it?
大家有问题可以提，或者是你的体会也可以说啊。
是那个老师啊，就是半开眼睛的时候，就是时间长了，那个眼睛会累，会不由自主的会闭起来一会儿，那没关系的，应该啊，就眼睛会难受开着。
She said her eye, if always open the eye, her eye feels sore. So so she, if we close a little bit in the middle and then open again, she asked about the eye. When you feel sore on your eye, what do you do?
If closing the eyes helps, I mean, there's no problem with closing the eyes.
你可以闭眼睛，没问题。就是你要是眼睛酸的话，可以闭一下。
老师，我有个问题。就是说，他说往前看，然后我可不可以盯着一个具体的物件去看？为了就是不去想其他东西。
It's about the eye. So where you look, if you concentrate on one thing, like one object,
就像一幅图啊，或者一个闹钟、一个钟啊，或者一个具体的物件。
like one picture, you look at a picture or like a clock or anything. It's okay to stare at something when you meditate.
If you want to focus on one point, yeah, that will help. So I've never did it myself, but I heard of people that kind of put like a painting of a circle, and in the center of a circle there's a black dot. So they hang that on the wall and they focus on that black dot. I never did that, but that can help you to stay focused. But as I said in the beginning, I prefer to have to spread my attention to the whole field of vision. But you don't have to do that. If it helps you to focus, then please focus.
老师他没有试过，就是完全盯住一个物体，但是他有听过有人，比如说画一个圆，中间点一个点儿，专门看着那个点儿集中精力也可以。老师是喜欢，就是你就是感觉好像所有东西都能看到，开阔你的眼界。但是如果你不喜欢这个方法，你可以盯着一个东西，可以试一下。
因为是初期嘛，然后如果你放开视野的话，整个房间的东西其实都能看到，就思绪比较乱，会乱飘。
He said if he try to open your view, look at everything, maybe it's hard for him to concentrate.
Yeah, then he can focus, no problem.
然后你就可以盯住一个点也可以。
好的。
但是盯着一个点，眼睛也容易累，会很累。
就闭一会儿。对吧？累的时候就闭一会儿。
对。
还有的时候可能会心里会默念1到10，比如吸气的时候数到10，然后在吐气的时候从10数到1，就是有一个数息的一个过程。
He said, how about if you're counting like 1 to 10, 10 from 10 to 1 when you're meditating counting?
Yeah, in Antaiji we never did that, but in some places they tell beginners to do exactly that. It helps you to stay concentrated, it helps you to stay here, and it's much easier than to just observe the breath without counting. If you connect the count, and you usually when you do that you count until 10 and then you start again with 1. Makes it easier in the beginning to stay with the breath. So if that's your main problem, to stay focused and in the moment, that's also possible. I don't have a problem with that. And if you want to try the thing with the thumbs, you put the thumbs to the tanden and you make sure that they stay there. That also helps to stay focused.
你可以试一下，因为一开始的时候可能精神不容易集中，你可以试一下数，但是不是一个推荐的办法，但是你可以试一下。还有就是你把手离丹田稍微近一点，其实也会帮助你精神集中。
I see two people raise their hand, Ingo and Ling Shu. Maybe first Ingo and then Ling Shu.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I also have one question on the eyes. So my mind keeps me busy with what it means to keep the eyes half open. So normally, if I close them, I get too tired.
Yes.
So I normally leave them completely open. So do you think it makes sense to somehow train half openness of the eyes, or just leave them open?
I wouldn't be too worried about if they're half open or if they're maybe only 1/3 open or 2/3. If normal, keeping them open the normal way is fine for you, there's no problem. Like in Antaiji, also depending on how bright it is outside. When it's very dark, there's no problem with keeping them normal open. But if it's very bright outside, I sometimes shut them completely. So I don't worry so much about always having them exactly half open. Well, I wouldn't say just sit as you feel, but I mean, if having them normally open is fine for you, you can still relax with them completely open, then please do it like that.
Thank you.
Me too, I think. Yes, please.
等一下，那个林旭，我说完你再说啊。然后就是刚才那个问题也是关于眼睛是半睁的状态。刚才那人说他觉得就是一直在特别忙的半睁的状态，保持一个特别半睁的状态，特别忙。然后但是老师说，其实你想怎样做都可以，也要看当时的情况。比如外边特别亮的时候，你可能就要闭上眼睛，因为你睁不开眼睛。但是外边特别黑的时候，你可能眼睛就会容易保持半睁的状态啊。他刚才就提的也是关于眼睛的位置。林夕，你自己说吧。
Hi, sorry, I came to the Zoom meeting later, so I don't know if you guys already talked about this. So,
it seems that you're mute now.
林夕，你好像刚才那个林夕，你再说一遍，刚才没听着。
Can you hear me right now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. I don't know, because I entered a Zoom meeting later, so I don't know if you guys already talked about this before. So if you guys already discussed about the hand position, just let me know. And I had the mindful meditation experience before, so they don't have to like exactly requirements for the hand position. So this is like second time to try hold my finger like this, but later once a while, like my muscle get tense, so it distracts me. I have to like think about, okay, my left finger gonna support my right finger or the other way. So I'm just wondering if they're like really necessary to hold my hands like this.
Is it really necessary? No, but I mean, it helps to concentrate on the posture, and sometimes when it's difficult, it's good to still sit even when it's difficult. So I wouldn't say that you necessarily always have to have them like this, but like whenever you have a difficulty and then you relax, for example, well, you can just sit normally like this. But then if you're, for example, your back feels tired, then you start to sit like this. And at one point, you have to try to do it in the, correct way. I mean, there's no perfect way. But if it's possible, I think it's worth to try to do it. And even if it's maybe difficult in the beginning, as I said, I actually said that it's easy to put them like this, but it's difficult to continue and have them like this for even 15 minutes. Often they become like this, or they go like this, or they separate. So that's quite normal that you will realize it's difficult. But just because it's difficult, I wouldn't, how do you say, try to make it easy. So whenever you realize, oh, they got separated, or now I got this mountain here, try it again. Try to get back to the original way and work with it, I would say.
刚才林虚提这个问题，就是手，总是这个位置就是不容易保持这同样一个姿势，那这个姿势要不要有必要一直保持这个姿势？然后老师的建议是，这个确实很难，就是一开始的时候很难，但是是值得大家尝试一下的，可能你经过几次训练会稍微好一些，对吧？当然没有说一定要求你手一定是这样，但是正确的那个Zazen的姿势是这个姿势，然后是值得大家挑战一下，训练一下，每次尽量保持这个姿势。
In Europe, probably it's already at the end of the lunch break now. Of course, we could continue also with the questions, but some of you maybe have plans after this. So I would say if you want to, let's meet again next week. So next Monday, we're going to do it at the same time. In 2 weeks, it's going to be the day before Chinese New Year. And you probably have realized we have a strong Chinese demographic in here. So we're going to have a holiday in 2 weeks, but then all February it's going to be on Monday, and we're going to see how it's developing. Probably we have some who do it for the first time, and we have some who've been practicing for decades in here. Let's see how it's going to develop, and if you have input from your side, let us know. Probably you know my YouTube channel, you know Xuan-san's website. You don't have to pay to participate, but if you want to donate, you probably know the donation link. I put it on my YouTube channel, and you also find it on Xuan's website. And if you want to learn yoga, as some of you are already students of Xuan, but if you're interested in yoga, Xuan-san is also teaching yoga several times a week, and you find information on her website. If you've been following me on YouTube, then you know her from the Sunday sittings. She's the one who's been teaching us the 10 minutes, 15 minutes of yoga before the Sunday sittings. Anyway, thank you for participating, and I'd be happy to see you again next week if you have the time, if you're interested. And hopefully we can sit longer and longer each time. Next time we're going to talk about the breath and about thoughts that come up during Zazen. So have a nice day. If you're in East Asia, have a good night. If you're in America, yeah, have a good day. If you're in Europe, I hope you enjoyed your lunch break and get back to work. Thank you, and see you again. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
结束了吗？
结束了，对，结束了。就是我们过年的时候那一周放假，然后呢，下周还有课，过完年的下一周上课，然后最后还帮我打了个广告，挺好的。我觉得我们这明天早上有课，明天早上有课，
我刚刚数了90个呼吸
啊。
他说呼吸不赞同数是吧？不赞同数。
对，可以数。就是其实我觉得坐禅没有一个标准，就是你要这样就不行，或者你那样这样就不行，好像没有一个特别的一个标准。
我有个困惑，就是说打坐跟练阿汤应该是相辅相成的，是吧？应该是哪个先做？
其实我的建议啊是先做阿汤，然后再打坐。
啊，
我的建议是先做啊，但是如果你先做打坐再做阿汤，其实也不是说完全不可以，也是可以的。但是我觉得，因为你先动起来，然后呢容易精神集中。就是你前面做完呼吸，因为我们做阿汤的时候，其实有呼吸的练习，对吧？有呼吸的练习，然后呢，你前面又特别一直在做动作，做完之后呢，其实那个做完之后，你在打坐的时候特别精神容易集中。因为我当时去安泰寺的时候呢，就是每天早上4点钟的时候，我们上一节瑜伽课，就是阿汤的口令课，4点到5点钟练1个小时，然后从5点到6点打坐，那1个小时精神特别集中。你当然，比如说你不方便，比如说你想要提前打坐，也不是说完全不可以。但是我的经验是，先练阿汤，然后反而精神容易集中。我觉得今天课还挺好的，大部分人都不是我们的，他来了好多人，挺好的，挺好的。行，那我
还好有你翻译。
没有，其实我不能我也没有每一句都翻译，就是大概其意思。他说的每一句也没有那个时间，每一句我没有每一句都翻译，就大概其他说的是这个意思。
重点 OK 就行了。
对，重点大概其大概其是这个意思，挺好的，我觉得这个课可以坚持啊，我觉得挺好的，挺好的。谢谢大家来，不错，挺好的。明天早上
我那个视频好像有问题，所以开不开来。
没事，下次回去再看看。
明天再见，拜拜。
拜拜，下了啊，拜拜。